of Guyana, of rivers and plains, made rich by the sunshine and lush by the rains. Say a gem light and fair between mountains and seas, your children salute you, dear land of the free.
Land of Guyana, our heroes of yore, both bondsmen and free, laid their bones on your shore. This soil so they hallowed, and from them are we, all sons of one mother, Guyana, the great land of Guyana, diverse though our strains, we're born of their sacrifice, heirs of their pains, and ours is the glory.
Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Breaking Down the Issues. I'm your host, as usual, Shurwayne Holder, Member of Parliament and Chairman of the People's National Congress Reform. I'll ask that you share the live, share it on your various social media platforms, share it to the groups that you're in, share it to your friends, your neighbors, persons in Guyana and out of Guyana. I can see a number of persons already signed in to the program tonight. That is a great sign. We have been off air for 2 or 3 weeks. I apologize for that. We were on the road with the leader of the opposition last weekend from Friday all through Sunday, so we could not have carried the program last week. The week before that, I believe we had a rally in Georgetown at Starbucks Square, in which the leaders spoke to the issue of the territorial controversy. The leader of the opposition and a number of other leaders, members of parliament, spoke to that issue. And the week before that, it was our party's general council, and of course, as chairperson of the party, I would have had a major role to play there, and so we could not have been on air at that time. So I just want to encourage you to share the live. Again, this is a program where we break down the issues, we simplify it so that the ordinary man, woman, and even children can have a clear understanding or a better understanding of the issues. We thought this evening that we should play the national anthem, at least part of it. We thought that was fitting to play because of the current situation in Guyana. And so it is a time for us to rile up our patriotism amongst all Guyanese, whether you're in Guyana or overseas. I see a number of persons coming into the program. Special good night to you. All I ask is that you share the live. We'll take a few seconds maybe half a minute more, then we can share the live and have that magic number to begin the program. I'm stunned with the number of persons that are already on the program. So we'll begin in a few seconds. Just share the live, guys. And we have two topics tonight. You know, for the last few weeks, we've been discussing the Venezuela Guyana controversy, territorial controversy. And I don't believe that will go away for any time soon, at least not until the uh, ICJ would have made its final ruling. And so I believe every week it will be a topic for discussion. We will have to determine how significant or how in depth we will go into it based on new developments or what is happening on the ground. We will determine that. But it is a topic that we will carry on a weekly basis. I think persons are clamoring for more information. There is an information deficit. There is a lack of info on all the things that are happening with respect to that issue. And so I think it is, it is only fitting that we have it as a topic on a weekly basis so that we can share as much information as possible on the issue. So tonight we will deal with the Venezuela Guyana issue, and we will deal with the other issue that we see is now trending, the increase for public servants. We see a lot of persons talking about that on social media, around the communities and the towns. Everybody is talking about it. And so we have that as the next major topic. And so to begin tonight's discussion, um, since our last program, there were a number of developments that would have taken place, and the one that stood out and the one that was on the minds of all Guyanese was the referendum. Now, that referendum was held on December 3rd, and as you know, the Venezuelan government would have asked a number of questions in that referendum. Essentially, what the referendum was focused on uh, was the actions to be taken by the Venezuelan government with regard to the territorial controversy. And essentially, in a nutshell, the questions surrounded whether they should move to annex the Essequibo or or not, or continue with the ICJ, the International Court of Justice process. The Venezuela National Electoral Council, that is the GCOM counterpart, if I can term it in that fashion, they reported that 10.5 million persons, voters, would have participated in that vote uh, for the referendum. They have also stated that over 95% of the voters voted in favor of it or voted yes to the questions put forward by the Maduro regime. You would know that, or you should know that Venezuela has eligible voting population of about 20.6 million persons. And so that number, which was reported by the Electoral Council, that would be just over 50%. However, however, international media and commentators like the Reuters, like the Guardian, those credible media sources would have indicated that they would have indicated that in their view there was a very low voter turnout. Their reporters on the ground reported that at many polling stations you had little or nobody there. Persons were sleeping, electoral staff were sleeping because obviously you had no one coming to the polls. And they estimated it, I think I saw in one or two media, saying that it was just about 11%. And so that seemed to be an accurate figure. It was disastrous for the Maduro regime. I believe it was a grave mistake. The people of Venezuela, if we are to believe the more credible international media sources, that 11%, only 11% of the vote of the eligible voters would have participated, then it would have been a grave mistake to the Maduro regime. It was really a referendum on the Maduro regime rather than it being a referendum on the border or the territorial controversy. Once you see so little Venezuelans reacting to these questions, so little of them going to the polls, then you could tell by it that uh, they are not for it. They don't have the kind of interest in Venezuela annexing or taking the kind of action that they would like to take with regard to the controversy. And so I think that was a disaster for Maduro. But of course, they are not a democratic government. They would have rigged the voting there. They put out whatever the government, whatever information the government determines should be put out. Just like countries, their friends like Russia and places like North Korea. It's the same thing that obtains in Venezuela, and so I think that was something that I should put out there. They claim that they have had a massive turnout, but the reality on the ground was that there was low voter turnout, and the people really did not come out in support of the referendum. Now, since the referendum, Maduro would have asked for a bill declaring Essequibo a state of Venezuela. I think they named it the Essequiba, Guayana Essequiba. Um, so he's asked for that bill to create that new state. Um, because it is absent from their constitution. It is absent from their laws. And this is a key point that I want to make because in 1899, when that arbitral award was made, Venezuela took it to arbitration and the Americans represented them, the British represented themselves, and you had the Russians being the persons in between that mediating the discussions. And so when that arbitral award was made and the final border for Guyana and Venezuela was drawn up in 1905, Venezuela placed that border into their constitution. So that the existing borders, we have our existing borders, our map drawn up, known as Guyana, and they have their respective border, and so that remain in their constitution up until now. So part of the focus of this referendum was to get this new state into their constitution, into their laws, and so he's asking for a bill to which would declare Essequibo a state of Venezuela. He's also appointed a temporary governor, a high-ranking military officer. He has declared that he will issue ID cards to he'll issue ID cards to citizens living in Essequibo. I don't know how he intend to do that, but that is what he would have declared. He's also given the oil companies and the mining companies an ultimatum to they have basically 3 months to vacate, stop their operations, bring their operations to a halt. Um, Additionally, he has instructed the uh, the local, the state-owned companies to immediately begin to explore and exploit our resources in the Essequibo. The mining resources, our gold, our diamond, our bauxite, our forests, uh, those resources, begin to explore and exploit those resources, and also our oil. Is also instructed the oil companies to begin exploration. And so that is, in a nutshell, that is what obtained with respect to the referendum and activities thereafter. Now, I want to discuss our response, because these are all the things that Venezuela would have been doing. Additionally, they would have had their 120 ambassadors across the world, making representation for their case, selling their story. However untrue it is, those ambassadors are all across the world selling their story. So I wanted us to look at what we have been doing to counter this. And when I say we, the government of Guyana, what exactly the government would have been doing. Now, the the government response would have been a couple of things. They had two outreaches. Two outreaches. One, the president went to Mabruma, and they had another outreach in Region 2, Mabruma Region 1, and the vice president came to Region 2, and hosted a rally. Now, a point to note is that at none of those outreaches, the opposition was invited. The leader of the opposition was not invited, nor members of parliament were not invited to the Mabruma outreach. Neither were we invited to the Anna Regina outreach, where they had that rally. I am a member of parliament representing Region 2, somebody who live in the town of Anna Regina, and it is quite unfortunate, it is quite disturbing that I wasn't invited, and the leader of the opposition, who was the most fitting person, he was not invited. And so, the government seemed to want to attack this issue by themselves. I don't know what the problem is. They talk about unity, they talk about one Guyana. They began to brand some of these advertisements under the One Guyana platform. But that is all they do. They only talk about One Guyana. They don't practice the principles of One Guyana on an issue that is national, that has implications for all Guyanese across the political divide, across races. They fail to engage the opposition in the way that they should. We have long said that we're ready to give the kind of support, and we have been giving the kind of support to the government, but we cannot be there for only the Photoshop moments. We cannot be there only for us to be mentioned that, oh, we're the opposition and the government is united on this. That is not how it works. If you look at Israel and the Palestinian issue, and I'm not saying that Israel is right in their actions, but they have united with the other opposition parties, the government united with the other opposition parties on the issue. Their nation, they felt that their nation was under attack, and they united. And so that is the kind of approach that we must take in this country. That is the kind of approach that the people of Guyana expect us to take. That is the kind of approach, if we were in government, I believe we would have taken. And it is no secret that the opposition has lots of ammunition when it comes to this the territorial controversy. We were there as the PNC from since 1964. We were there when they annexed the part of our part of the Ankoko Islands. We were there through several presidents when different level of threats, and you had escalation, the issue escalating at some points, and then we brought it back through diplomacy, through a robust diplomacy structure that worked for us, that kept us safe as a nation for decades. And now when you have this threat escalating to a point that we've not seen before, when we were left at some point without anybody saying anything from the international community. Well, now we're glad to hear of a number of nations stepping up. But it is a critical point. It is a critical point. We've not seen this kind of aggression for a very long time. And so the people of this country expect that we will unite in the right way, in the correct way, not just talk about unity. The vice president was in Essequibo at that rally, and he said, the government and the opposition are united on this matter. Well, we've long said that we are going to support the people of this country, and we will do whatever we have to do to give support to ensure that the country remains in peace and the people's lives are protected. Everything that we have to do. But we can't be there as a rubber stamp. We can't be there just to be used in whatever way. And so there is need for a different approach by the government. Now you had the president and something that was very stunning, and I should mention this. Something that stunned this country was on the eve of the referendum, while people were panicking, people were afraid, people were shutting down their businesses, persons were shopping up groceries as if a disaster is coming, people were migrating from region 1 and other regions heading to Georgetown, while the soldiers were on our border, not knowing what they should expect. The president, the vice president, and all the senior ministers, including the attorney general, packed up and went overseas. They packed up and went overseas. The president and vice president and foreign ministers, they thought that it was necessary, or it was more important for them to be at the COP28 environmental conference, which is held every year. They wanted to be in the company of other countries and talk about environment rather than be at home reassuring and comforting the citizens and giving leadership, showing leadership across the country and showing leadership to the army giving that leadership, giving them that moral support. Which other country would a president desert his people at such a crucial time? This was a miss. This was a sure miss. And based on the correspondence that we saw, the first correspondence, they were supposed to be out of the country for a number of days, way past the December 3rd, the day of the referendum. Soldiers were throwing their hands up. People on the border community were in dismay when they saw their commander-in-chief. You know, there's a reason why the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. He should take a page out of the Ukraine president, who is currently fighting a formidable foe, an enemy that is way bigger. I submit to you that we are in a similar situation. But unlike Guyana, the Ukrainian president didn't run and leave his troops. He didn't go anywhere when he was needed at a crucial moment. Anil Nandalal, he went to Aruba, I'm told. They can't be serious. They can't be serious. This is way past incompetence. I don't want to believe that this is just incompetence. Something has got to be wrong with our president. Something has got to be wrong with our vice president. Something got to be wrong with the entire government. You know, if they can't handle it, then give us an opportunity. We understand the issue. We know what we have to do. But you can't run a country in this manner. They have constantly stumbled. They have stumbled when they came to government. They have stumbled with COVID in terms of the deaths. They've stumbled with the flood relief. So many things they've stumbled with. They've stumbled with the economy. They continue to stumble with the economy. And now this situation, the situation in which we stand to lose more than 2/3 of our territory, more than 2/3 of our country, where we stand to lose a great majority of our natural resources, and you run and you leave the country. There is still no plausible explanation. I haven't heard a proper explanation coming from the president or the vice president on why they think that it was necessary to leave the country and desert the people, the army, and everybody at that crucial moment. No explanation. None whatsoever. These are the kind of people that we have leading a country. Forbes Burnham, Chetty Jagan, probably turning in their graves. Turning in their graves. Forbes Burnham would have been there from 1964 all the way to 85. Would you believe that he would ever desert his army? Would you believe that he would ever run to leave the country at such a crucial time? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I'm certain, I am quite certain that the current leader of the opposition and leaders in opposition would not do something like that. Because we understand the fears of the people on the ground. We understand what it means to be leaders in government. We understand our role. People elect us to represent them, to fight for them. It is a time when we have to give leadership to the army. We have to give leadership to the people. We have to calm them down. We have to be in the fields with them. It is not a time to go to some environmental conference. What was the takeaway from that? You know, I tell people the president could have gone there, but I believe the timing was wrong. It was absolutely wrong, and he should have known that. Your entire cabinet out of the country. The country left on autopilot while you're out, while you have an enemy saying that he's going to take over more than 2/3 of your country. You got to be a crazy person. You got to be out of touch with what is happening in the society. He could have gone. If he had gone there and come back with something, but I say the timing was wrong. But you had to go, that conference runs about 2 weeks. And so you had to stay during that referendum. You can't go out of the country at that time. You've already grounded the army folks. You've grounded them. They have to stay and fight for the country. But you as the commander-in-chief, you up and you go. You know, disappointed is an understatement. It's an understatement. It's an understatement. He had to come back with something. But he came back with nothing. And so they went to Dubai. They had some other actions. He came back when he learned about certain activities with the opposition, and we'll get into that. He flew back. And he came into the Essequibo about 1 o'clock. I saw it. I was up. I was out in the fields, and I was still out. I was not at home. And I saw when the helicopter came in. And so early Sunday morning on the 3rd, he thought it fit to go and open, well, not open, but turn the sod for a $200 million shade house. I think it's some shallot or something they plan to go there. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That was a time when you're supposed to be up and about and dealing with people and trying to calm their fears down and explaining to the nation what you would have achieved going to that COP 2028 and meeting with world leaders, what you brought back, what was the takeaway, what is the plan going forward if the referendum, if Venezuela, if Maduro wins the referendum, what are your plans? Those are the things that you were supposed to be discussing. But instead, he thought that he should meet with the children that attend the Guyana School of Agriculture, and he turned the sod for the $200 million shade house farm, the plant shallot and maybe some other things. That is the kind of leadership that you get from him. Or lack of leadership thereof. People have got to see this for what it is. You've got to see the incompetence. You've got to read through the carefree behavior of this president and this government. So they did that on the 3rd. And the next activity they had was a concert. In Region 4. Now, I don't have a problem with concerts and people singing Not a Blade of Grass. But first off, if you wanted to do that, then you could have held it in the Essequibo region. That is where it should have been held, not in Region 4, where people outside of the disputed area. You should have been in the disputed region and rallying your troops, rallying the people. But again, they don't understand the task at hand. They don't understand the seriousness. They've played with this issue for too long. They've messed around with the Venezuelans and have them coming in and not having proper records, and then you have the vice president allegedly meeting with them and saying it's a no fault, people discriminating them, and a whole sort of nonsense. They have themselves to be blamed as well for the situation, for the current situation. We have to blame them. They have to stand some of the blame for the current state of affairs with regards to this problem that we have. Now, the opposition, I want to discuss what we would have been doing. Now, we're only in the opposition. We're not in government. We don't have the resources that they have at their disposal. Many of us take monies out of our pockets to get to wherever and to contribute to whatever we have to do. That is how we do it. There isn't no big budget under the leader of the opposition office that could take care of those kind of activities. But nevertheless, the leader of the opposition and other opposition members of parliament, I was there, MP Vince Roy, Jordan was there as well, and a number of opposition leaders, central executive members of our party, etc., were on the ground from December 4th right through to December 3rd, giving leadership, supporting people across the Essequibo region, across region number 2, in several communities right across the region. We were at Good Hope. We were in Pomona, which is a PPP stronghold. I must say the opposition leader was welcomed in open arms. We were in Queenstown. We were in Anna Regina, the market area. We met with persons from across the region. Again, we were met with open arms. People were happy. People were happy to hear from us. They expressed their fears. They expressed their concerns. They expressed their disappointment that Ali was out of the country. Jagdeo was out of the country. They expressed their disappointment of the lack of information and the lack of appropriate action being taken by this current government. Operator, yes, you can share some of the clips, and we have that little video. When you finish sharing clips, we were welcomed with open arms. We touched the entire region. We went to the Pomeroon, we went to Kabakaburi, we went to the Lower Pomeroon area, Hackney, Friendship, Marlborough area. And everywhere that we went, people were happy to see us. People were happy to interact with us. Whether Indo-Guyanese, Afro-Guyanese, indigenous Guyanese, all Guyanese were happy that the leader of the opposition and his team was there. Yes, folks. That was a snippet of our trip, our outreach, rather, across the Essequibo Region 2, that is, across Region 2. We met with so many concerned residents, rice farmers, small business people, teachers, nurses, you know, ordinary vendors, common man in the street, elders, retirees. Everybody wanted to know what is going on. Some of the small business persons said to me that they're not investing at this time. They're limiting the amount of resources they're going to use on their business because of that uncertainty that is surrounding the country at this point in time. People are really worried. People are fearful. People are fearful. Some of the vendors said to us, sales have slowed because of this controversy. It's kind of back. It's kind of down, and so people's lives are really being affected. People's lives are really being affected. So we were doing that on the ground while Ali and Jagdio and others were out of the country. We were operating as we should, as the government in waiting, as an alternative government. We showed the nation that we understood the task at hand. We were a responsible opposition, and we did what we had to do, what was required of us. And so we were out there, and the people were very much happy to hear from us and to listen to the advice that we had to share with them. Now, um, the leader of the opposition, additionally, when he headed back to Georgetown, he would have had a press conference, and he said that, look, the government can no longer operate the way they're operating with this kind of uncertainty and inadequacy. I think those were the two words that he used. They operate as though they're unsure of what they have to do, unsure of what will happen, and their actions or reactions are quite inadequate, and so they can no longer operate like that. They need to involve other people who know what is going on, who can properly advise them, and so that the actions of the government can be adequate to match what Maduro is doing. That is what is needed. And so we had that press conference. The leader made a call to deploy special envoys to lobby our case. As I told you before, Venezuela has all their envoys overseas, all their ambassadors, 120 of them or thereabout, lobbying their case. However untrue it is, they're still batting for Venezuela. We need people out there that will bat for us. We need people out there that will bat for us, and so we call on them to do that immediately. We call on them importantly to stop, bring a halt to the influx of Venezuelans in this country. It is dangerous, and they need to stop it. They need to stop it immediately. I keep mentioning this. One of the strategies Russia had in Ukraine to annex Crimea and the other area, I believe, is the Donetsk region. They had a lot of Russians living there. And so while the international community condemned it, what could they have done? What could they have done? Because the citizens there, the people in those regions are saying, look, we want the Russians to take us over. And so we can't, we're hearing about situations in communities where the Venezuelans are more than the local citizens. And so the government has to bring that to a halt immediately and take stock of the Home Affairs. Have got to get accurate information of how many Venezuelans are in, and they've got to work it out. They've got to share that information as well. We need to know how many Venezuelans are there, what are their locations, How many would have been rejected for suspicion of being military personnel? They've got to stop it. Another thing we call for is for them to stop giving ID cards. They need to halt that thing, save and except for the children of Guyanese who are Venezuelans who are entitled under our law. But they've got to stop issuing birth certificates and ID cards to Venezuelans. We understand that their support base is dwindling. We understand that they want to do everything to win an election, but we can't do it. You cannot do something as unpatriotic as giving Venezuelans ID cards when we have a problem with that country who's threatening our livelihood. No, we can't. We can't do that. So Jagdio and others, they need to bring an end to that. And so the opposition, the leader of the opposition, would have been calling for that. We've also submitted a motion to the parliament. There is supposed to be parliament on Monday. We've been calling for parliament. You know, we had only one session of parliament since this issue began, and we had to call for it. We had to call for unity at the parliamentary level. And so they are now having a session of parliament again. But, you know, they only call parliament. They're accustomed to only calling parliament when they want money. And so they have one coming up, not to discuss the Venezuela issue, but to discuss regular issues supposed to be opposition, the private members day, sorry. And they have some motions, some internal motions to debate there. But that is not the pressing issue at the moment. Venezuela, the controversy with Venezuela is the most pressing issue. And so that should be the major item. We feel that that should be the major thing to be discussed at Parliament. And so the opposition would have submitted a motion to the Parliament, and we called, in that motion, we called for the National Assembly to instruct the government to establish a high-level border commission. They don't seem to know where they're going. Their response is very inadequate. And so you need to bring others on board. There is an information deficit. People are panicking. You need to bring the opposition on board. You need to bring other stakeholders on board. You need to bring technical people that have the kind of experience in foreign policy and know how to do those kind of negotiations abroad. So we called for that in the motion. We called for the National Assembly to support the upgrading of the defense infrastructure. And this is not only in relation to this issue with Venezuela. We have other issues. We have other controversies. Something that people miss is that when this thing came up to the ICJ, the Suriname sent a note to the ICJ, sort of renewing their claim to some extent to the New River Triangle area. So we need to improve our defense infrastructure and provide the kind of tools and resources that they need to ensure that the people of Guyana are protected and remain safe. We call on the National Assembly as well to call on the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to deploy special envoys. I discussed that with you already. We need to have special envoys in strategic countries, in lobbying strategic organizations, rather than them paying. I'm told that the People's Progressive Party would have paid a company in the U.S. or some part of the world to lobby U.S. senators, since you had senators coming over to Guyana to deal with this whole issue of discrimination and the bad treatment of certain sections of society by the government. You had a number of visits from senators in the U.S. And so, as we understand it, they are paying some company to lobby in the US. Well, spend the money to lobby for Guyana, not lobbying for the People's Progressive Party. Lobby for your country. Lobby for your territory. That is what is needed at this point in time. And so we called on them to do that. We called on them to, to, to instruct the government to curb the influx of the Venezuelans, and to share accurate information on them. We asked the National Assembly to call on the Ministry of Home Affairs to gather accurate information on how many Venezuelans are here, where they're located, and that sort of thing, and halt the issuance of those birth certificates and ID cards. Halt it immediately. It is unpatriotic and it is dangerous to our country. I don't think I have to mention it any more than that. Use any other adjective to describe it. It is dangerous. It is quite dangerous for us to be doing that as a nation. That can have serious consequences. Serious consequences. But I don't believe Vice President Jagdeo understands from his posture. Generally, he says a few things at his press conferences, but his posture, his body language says something different. We didn't see him speak in the parliament on the issue. We didn't see him going out to any border community. I'm thinking if he's serious. On top of that, you would recall that he would have suggested on camera, and the whole world knows it, on camera, he suggested that a deal could be had with Venezuela to give them a maritime path in our waters, in our oil-rich waters. He said it on record. And when he was caught with his pants down, persons on social media and in other mainstream media brought it up, what he did. He pointed his
probably
fingers at
on the maritime area, yes, give Venezuela a channel out to the sea. So you make a slight concession in the maritime area. You could probably, on the maritime area, give Venezuela a channel out to the sea. So you make a slight concession in the maritime area.
Every time I look at this video, it is so disappointing. Here is the vice president, when he was president, conceding territory. This too is dangerous. You're sending a wrong message. You're sending the message to Venezuela that if they apply enough pressure, we will crumble and we will give up territory. That is the kind of message. So you're encouraging, you're inviting them to take certain action. They would believe that if they move to take over some bit of territory, and they don't have to move to take over the entire Essequibo, folks. They don't have to move to take over the entire Essequibo. They can begin their crusade by occupying a number of border communities, which would be an easy take. And then they will stay there and they will hold on to it. And so I believe Jagdeo was president at that time when he made that statement. And instead of manning up to what he said, instead of accepting and saying, look, I was much younger, I hadn't the kind of experience, I made a mistake, or explain the context of the discussion at that time. Instead of doing that, in his usual way, he pointed fingers at the opposition to say, well, Desmond Height at some time wanted to do that. Where he got that from? Where did he come up with that? Is there a video of President Height saying anything like that? Is there any correspondence of President Height or anybody in President Height's administration saying something like that? The answer is no. I will tell you where he got it from. He got it from a document submitted by Venezuela to the International Court. He got it from that document. That is so unpatriotic because you're taking what they're saying in their document, whatever lies they're saying in their document. You now take that in your defense and in an attempt to embarrass the opposition. But it can't work. People are not that gullible. People are not that stupid. People understand what is happening. Folks, the latest on this development is, I know I want to touch on that salary increase, but I just want to give you the latest development. There is a new development that the president of St. Vincent would have brokered a deal. You had a CARICOM emergency meeting to discuss the issue. I think you had some discussion. The United Nations Security Council as well had some discussions, but nothing of grave significance came out of that. However, the president of Venezuela, of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonzalez, who is a close friend to the People's Progressive Party for decades, he would have written to the president asking for the president to meet with Maduro in St. Vincent and Lula, President Lula of Brazil, and I believe some reps from the United Nations would be there to observe some sort of discussion. We're not certain what those discussions will entail, but the opposition has since taken note of it. I must say that the leader of the opposition was briefed and was briefed on it, and he raised a number of concerns. One, the first concern is that they're going at it alone. They don't have the experience. They don't have the expertise. And they just want to go at it alone. He said in no uncertain terms to them that, look, to Irfan Ali, that the opposition has to play a more significant role, has to be engaged at the policy level, and has to participate at that level. We can't be for the Photoshop. We wouldn't stay and sit idly just to be our name to be mentioned to say, well, we're in this together. We have to be part of the decision making. We have lots of ammunition. We have lots of persons with expertise and experience who would have lived through the era of several presidents while we were in government. Several Venezuelan presidents lived through an era of several threats being made and several actions being made by Venezuela. And so we have that kind of experience, and we cannot afford as a nation to have a government that wants to operate in a one-sided manner on this issue. And so he said that to them. And two, he said to him, and we issued a statement subsequently, that look, we welcome any action that will cause or reduce tension or cause a reduce in the tension with regards to this issue. But we do not believe that at this point in time, the president of Guyana should sit with Venezuela, the president of Venezuela, Maduro, to discuss border issue. And why is that so? Because the issue is properly in front of the courts, and the court should be allowed to act, and we will respect whatever decision the court makes. And so we don't want no backdoor kind of arrangement and somebody giving territory to ceding Guyana territory to Venezuela. We don't want them kind of those kind of things, or no backdoor economic deal and that kind of thing. We want everything to be straight. This issue is properly, as I said, in front of the court, and it should be allowed. I want to get the read the exact statement. I should have it here just to give you verbatim. Just to give you verbatim what is the position, the official position of the opposition, and it says the parliamentary opposition welcomes the action being taken by the international community to ensure that there is peace between the Cooperative Republic of Guyana and the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. The parliamentary opposition wishes to make it quite clear that we are not opposed to dialogue or discussions with the president of Venezuela, as this could lead to better relations between the governments and the people of the two countries. In our presentation at Parliament on this particular issue, the leader of the opposition did say that we cannot shut the door closed to dialogue, but dialogue at this time should be focused on issues that will promote good neighborliness and peace and stability between the two countries, and issues that would improve the lives of the people of the two states. Now, the opposition is further saying that it is the considered view of the opposition that the two leaders could continue to explore the expansion of bilateral issues. And that is what I just explained to you. Those kind of soft issues, economic issues, social issues, we can discuss that. But in terms of the territorial controversy, this is what the opposition is saying. The opposition believes that there must not be any discussion on the territorial controversy between the two countries, as the matter is properly before the court, the International Court of Justice, and the process must be allowed to take its course so that it is settled within the confines of international law. We don't want, let me explain this. We don't want a situation, look, Venezuela accepted the settlement already. This arbitral award that was through, I believe, the Treaty of Washington. It was made through the Treaty of Washington back in 1899. They accepted it. They placed it in their constitution. They attended the border, the picketing of the border, and they were happy. Over 60 years, they were happy with it. Then they came back after 60-something years, came back to make a claim that the Essequibo territory belongs to them. And so it is for good reason we are advising the government that they should not be discussing this issue with President Maduro, because we don't want a situation that obtained after that 1899 award back in the 1960s, them coming back again and bringing up something. We want this thing to be finally adjudicated in the court. As far as we're concerned, the border is already final. But the claim that Venezuela is making, based on the letter from the dead participant on the commission, the 1899 commission, the fellow, I think his name is Mali Provo, based on his letter, that claim that they made the court has to look at that claim and see if there is any proof or evidence to deem the 1899 award null and void. And even in that case, we will go back to what obtained before the 1899 award, where Guyana had much more territory than it currently has. So we are backing the ICJ process, and we're saying to Irfan Ali, do not discuss anything pertaining to the border at this point in time. I don't know if he has the competence, if he has the people surrounding him that could advise him properly as we are doing. But for me, the leader of the opposition, if he is going there, then the lead or any discussion at that level, the leader of the opposition should be there. But we do not believe that this border territory controversy, this territorial controversy rather, should be discussed at this meeting. This seems to be not a meeting set up by CARICOM, but a meeting set up by Ralph Gonzalez. Now, Ralph Gonzalez, and this is the next thing that we should worry about, that we are worried about. Ralph Gonzalez, his country, he has been tying up deals with Venezuela, economic deals. And so it is in his interest. It is in his interest to undertake whatever he's trying to do there to benefit him in whatever way. That is quite obvious. Lula will be there, the president of Brazil, but Brazil also has a stake in this. And so Brazil doesn't want a war. Brazil has its own interests. And so Brazil will be there to observe. We have our interests to protect. Folks, I think, we wanted to discuss that 6.5 increase, but we took our full time. The operator is indicating to me that we're just over the hour, and so we will have to leave that discussion for the next program. I want to thank each and every one of you who would have tuned in tonight, for staying with us the entire hour, for supporting this program. I encourage you to invite friends to share this live, continue to share this live, and to tune in to our next program next week, same time, same place, when we will have another edition of Breaking Down the Issues. I would say to you at this point in time, I hope you enjoy the remainder of your Sunday evening, and stay safe, and God bless. Good night.